Apple just dropped some fresh new hardware and we have quite a lot to talk about. And we'll waste no time and just jump straight into the iPhone 14s because there are a lot of interesting product decisions Apple made. Remember the iPhone 6 and the first introduction of a bigger iPhone with the plus in front of the name? Well, it's back. The iPhone 14 has an iPhone 14 Plus, which is just a stretched version of the 14. So the screen size is 6.1 inches on the 14 and 6.7 inches on the 14 Plus. The bigger one will also get a bigger battery, and that is where the differences end. Both will use the same hardware everywhere else, including the cameras. However, the most weirdest stunt that they pulled is that they are using the A15 Bionic CPU from last year in the 14 and 14 Plus. Granted, it is still one very powerful processor and it can run laps around anything the Android world can offer, but if you own an iPhone 13, this is essentially an iPhone 13s and 13s Plus. And if you own an iPhone 13 Pro or Pro Max, then the regular 14 and 14 Plus will actually be a downgrade. The 14 and 14 Plus are still rocking the notch and some improvements to the selfie camera for better low light performance. On the back, they both have just two cameras and both are 12 megapixels, also supporting their sensor shift tech for better and more agile image and video stabilization. Then we have the Pros, and here is where things look a little bit different. The notch is gone on the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, and it has been replaced with a pill-shaped cutout that they are calling Dynamic Island. This is because the software is using the cutout area as a notification segment of sorts for apps like the phone app, music, maps, wallet, the voice memos, and clock. Developers might be adding more features to this notch area soon, I hope. It's also coming in with the latest and greatest A16 Bionic CPU, which just extends the gap when it comes to the most powerful CPU in a smartphone. No surprises there. The iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max are also coming with 3 cameras instead of just 2 on the 14 and 14 Plus. And the cherry on top, Apple finally brings always on display to the iPhone. You know, it's crazy that I started seeing always on displays on phones like the Nokia E63 back in 2008. Anyways, we're happy that Apple finally brought it to the iPhone, but the whole iPhone 14 series has some more features deserving a special mention. The biggest one being that they have deleted the SIM slot. Yes, iPhones that will be sold in the US will not come with a slot for a physical SIM card. They will 100% support eSIMs, which Econet just released coincidentally in Zimbabwe last week at the agricultural show. Anyway, so if you are importing your iPhone 14 from the US, just be sure to keep that in mind. Also, I can't wait to see how smartphone dealers in Harare explain that one to their customers. Doesn't come with a SIM slot. The iPhone 14 series will also support what Apple is calling a photonic engine, which is a new feature that will lean heavily on software to provide better low light performance in photos for the cameras. Apple claims a 2 times better low light performance in photos taken with the telephoto and ultra-wide cameras and 2.5 times on the main camera. Speaking of cameras, the main camera on the Pro models is now a 48 megapixel sensor, up from the 12 megapixel one on previous iPhones. And it will be running a 4:1 pixel binning, essentially taking the information from 4 pixels and combining it into 1. The math wizards may have realized that the resultant resolution of the photos is still 12 megapixels, but you can capture 48 megapixel photos in ProRes image mode if you really need all the pixels. The camera can also provide a 2x telephoto image by cropping into the 48 megapixel sensor, so more zoom options thanks to the higher resolution sensor. There is also emergency SOS via satellite, where just like GPS, the phone can connect to a satellite in space so you can send emergency services if you're stranded in an area with no mobile network or Wi-Fi. And to help lock onto a satellite for the best signal, there is a built-in satellite tracker that shows you where the best signal is. Apple says this service will only be available in the US and Canada for now, and that it will be free only for the next 2 years. After that, you'll be subscribing to that service. That is the Apple way. Personally, I think the iPhone 14 Pros are pretty desirable, all things considered, but the non-Pro iPhone 14 seem like a step back, or at least they should have just been cheaper simply because they're using a year-old chipset and lacking that third camera sensor. Oh, they also introduced a new set of Apple Watches in Apple Watch Series 8, and they also introduced an Apple Watch SE as well as a fresh new Apple Watch Ultra. It's a more rugged and more feature-packed watch than the Series 8, featuring more tactile buttons that can be used with gloves, so you know it means business. The features also include more mics for better voice pickup in hostile conditions like in the middle of a storm. It's also got bigger and louder speakers for better volume, useful in those said hostile conditions. The battery is also bigger and lasts up to 36 hours. Also, to keep you from getting lost, you get waypoints on the watch to aid in your orientation in low visibility situations, just to keep you going in the right direction. And also a backtrail feature that logs your trail and shows you where you came from in case you got lost or you need to go back where you started. We also got new AirPods. These now have spatial audio, which just makes sound more immersive by adding a lot more directionality to the audio. So apart from the left-right, you also hear forward and backwards, up and down, and everything else in between. Battery life is now 6 hours for the buds alone, and also the case now has a speaker that plays a tone to help you find it a bit more easily if you happen to misplace it. Really far out stuff right there. See what I did? And this is the summary of Apple's far out event. Let's see how many of you buy some iPhones. See you again next time.